Okay, so we are in this lecture on the book of Revelation, and I know that to some this is great and you're learning a lot, and to others this might be different, and I get it. As I said from the beginning, this is very different to other lectures or books that you've read on Revelation. I tend to look at it from this angle, from this point of view, and not just look at the numbers and prophecies and all that kind of stuff. So I get it, and thank you for sticking around. I understand it, and I say that this is not the only way to understand Revelation, but it is the way I know, and I've been taught to understand it, and not only understand Revelation, but that's the way I approach any Bible in the scriptures, any book in the Bible, because I don't believe we can fully understand what Revelation means for us until we fully understand what it means for the first century readers. And so I've been leading you in each lecture in this text, in this context, and that's important for us. And if you know me, and if you've known me long enough, some of you on this lecture have known me for many years through previous congregations, others have known me for a short time, others have sort of known me for a while. And as I said, if you know me long enough, that is, I have approached every study on the book in the Bible, and I do the same in my preaching. I tend to look a lot at the context in order for us to understand it now. So, having said all of that, let's look at Revelation 13. So, we are in lecture 10. We've got three more lectures. So we're going to focus on some things in this complex passage. You have my permission to disagree with me. I know I'm right, but you can disagree if you want to. So, in order to understand Revelation 13, I have to give you some history, as always. Some of this we spoke about before. In 60 AD, there is a general in the Roman army in the area of Judea and Israel, and his name is Vespius. And he had tremendous amount of respect from his soldiers, and he was a leader of leaders. He was a great guide to his troops. In one particular battle, Vespasian's got a wound in his head. Everyone thought that he was going to die, but he kept fighting, and at the end, they won the battle. And his level of popularity went from literally here to up there. Even after the battle, they didn't think he was going to make it, yet he recovered and went on to do great things. And the campaign that he led ultimately ended with his son Titus leading troops to Jerusalem to destroy the temple and ultimately Masada and the fall of Masada. Now, Vespasian was a big character from the Roman world in a Jewish mindset of that day. Okay, so now when Nero dies, history moves into what was called the era of the four emperors. There are three guys that try and get that position in a grand total of about 6 months. Very unstable period and no real good leadership. And so then the Praetorian rise up. Those are the sort of elite forces of that day. They are basically the Romans' special forces, one would say. They rise up and say, no more Rome Senate. We want Vespasian. And through a very interesting series of events, Vespasian becomes Caesar of Rome. And that matters because Vespasian enters a new Roman family dynasty, and that is the Flavian. Vespasius Flavius was his Latin name. And that's very important, not so much for Vespasian, but who was going to come after that. And that matters because when he dies, his son Titus becomes Caesar, but he only reigns for 2 years. And then he gets a fever And I put it there in inverted commas because it's questionable whether he had a fever, and he dies. And so his young brother took over the throne, and his name was Domitian. Okay, some historians will say that actually Domitian should have been in the first one to inherit it, but Domitian was more of a politician, and Titus was more of a army guy. So his father felt that maybe he should give it to him, to Titus rather than Domitian. Um, there's actually a series at the moment on one of the streaming channels that actually talks about this. Titus dies of fever and Domitian takes over. Uh, at that time, every Caesar had an advent, which is in that world simply means an arrival. It's announcement of their arrival. Over the years, some of them had more than one advent. Now, Domitian had 22 of these advents, the celebration of who he is. He was so full of himself. He was such an evil man that when he died, the Romans instituted a law called the Montius Memoria, which is basically the nation of your memory. In other words, they wiped out everything. What they did was, after he died, the Romans went through the entire empire, and anything with his name, image, or anything that reminded them of him was destroyed. Okay, so with that in mind, I want to show you some pictures. By far, the largest advent that Domitian had was in the city of Ephesus, which becomes the center of emperor worshipping during the time of Domitian. And they begin to build a structure that become known as the Domitian Gymnasium. When we think this word, we think sports and exercise, but in those days it was more than that. It was a place of education. This structure was huge. Okay, so you can see the two pictures there. This is the ruins of the Domitian Gymnasium today on the top picture. It was huge, it was massive. Historian says that it would have taken them 100 years to build this structure. They completed it in 4 years. Massive amount of resources and money going into this because Ephesus wanted to make a statement. Okay, so I want you to look at the building at the bottom. The top is the ruins, but the bottom is what I want to speak to us about tonight. And I want to draw your attention to that statue in the beginning, in the top there, and to the different. You can't really see them very well, but there's statues in these little compartments. If you look in the corner, you will see what looks like a farm, okay? A farmland that was the ancient harbor of the city. So you see the greenery sort of coming in, making this kind of a bay kind of look. It was actually a harbor for the city. It is now covered up over the years. Ephesus was the number one port city in Asia Minor. So this is the remainder of the gymnasium that was built right on this port. In fact, historians record that this building went up so fast, it looked like a beast rising out of the sea. Important for us to know. Just aside, also it's important, if you ever read for yourself the book of Ephesus, then it's good to know a little bit background on the city itself. That it was a harbor city, that it was one of the main emperor worship places, that there was a gymnasium and all that stuff, because then you'd understand why Paul writes the way he writes in Ephesians. That's just a side. But anyway, so historians say that it went so fast that it looks like a beast was rising out of the sea. When you come to Ephesus by boat, the first thing that you will see is the Domitian gymnasium. So it's that picture at the bottom, right? Picture in the bottom and the statue on top of it, right? The statement of where they believe the power came from. But this was not all. On the other end of the city, they started to erect another temple called the Flavian Temple. Remember what family it was a part of? The Flavian dynasty. Okay, so on the one side, you've got this gymnasium, on the other side, you've got another temple. Okay, there is that picture in the bottom. I want you to look carefully at it. This is more or less what it would have looked like completed. This is facing towards the land. The pillars would have been 24 in numbers, with the guards chiseled into them holding a huge statue of Domitian, about 12 meters high, with his arms raised. So when you enter Ephesus from the land, this is the first thing that you will see. So if you enter by sea, you will see Domitian Gymnasium. If you enter by land, the first thing you see is the Domitian Temple. The guy was really full of himself, wasn't he? Think about this, and we spoke about it in previous lecture. Last time we said the dragon is who? Satan, right? In the world of the Bible, anyone who serves the dragon was known as the beast. Domitian is the beast of the sea and the beast of the land. Remember, we spoke about what that meant: one leg in the sea and one leg in the land. Now, Domitian's temple looks at the size of, look at the size of this. Again, uh, it's a picture, so you really need your imagination. If you look from the bottom, you can see the guards chiseled into the pillars. So the middle picture is taken out of these little compartments that you see at the top picture, okay? And they were basically different guards that were chiseled into the pillars. The Domitian statue is on top of that. So this was Domitian. Now, I want you to imagine, so the bottom one is a replica of a statue that was found of Domitian. I want you to imagine that you're in a home church in Ephesus, okay? So we are meeting right now in a home church in Ephesus, and you see these two temples get built. This is profound. Like, what are we going to do? Because what happens for them was, and we spoke about it again in previous lecture, but it's worth to mention again, in order for them to buy and sell things, all right, anything, in order for you to go and buy from the market, the Aurora, or sell something, they had to do something that was very interesting. Remember the Agora, the marketplace? Now, in order to buy and sell there, you will have to offer incense to God. Most historians will agree that you would have had to offer them in one of these temples, either the Domitian temple or the Gymnasium temple. And in order to prove that you offer the offering, they will give you some sort of a mark on your hand. Now think about this. You go to the Domitian temple to offer your offering, to whom was referred to as the beast. And at the temple of the beast, they give you a mark. What is that mark called? The mark of the beast. Guys, this is not complicated, okay? We keep on thinking, mark of the beast is I don't know, these new watches that can do anything. The other day, someone made a payment to me, and I had my cell phone, and he had a watch on, and he literally tapped his watch on my cell phone, and bloop, the money went straight into my account. So some people are saying that's the mark of the beast. Some people are saying the next thing from the watch is we're actually going to have implant of things inside. Again, why do we need to look for those kind of things? The Bible tells us, and if we go deeper, like we are going deeper in these lectures, in order for you to sell or buy anything at the Agora, at the market, you had to go and you had to offer an offering. because that mark that they gave you meant that you are now qualified to sell or to buy anything. Interesting, isn't it, guys?
Yes.
Okay, here's a question.
Right.
There's a question here. A little house in Ephesus. Here's a question for us. Do you take the mark? Guys, you're in this Bible study group now in Ephesus, and you need to go and buy some food because, churches, if there's food, people come. So we need to buy some food. The only way you can buy the food for our Bible study is to go to the market. But before you go to the market, you need to go and make an offering in order to get the mark, in order to go to the market. So anyone, do you go to the market?
Yes.
Do you? But then you're worshiping Domitian, and you're a Christian. You go to a Bible study. So how can you go to worship Domitian before you come to the Bible study? Okay, I will leave that question for you, but a very interesting question, because it's easy for us in today's world, in the Zoom session with our stomachs full of dinner, or we're going to have food after the session, to sit here and say, no ways, I will never do that. I'm a Christian. How about the parents looking at the kids who are starving because they had no food, because you didn't go to the Agora to buy or sell and get the mark? What about them? Do you take the mark? A very interesting question. What about last week when your best friend got arrested and the kids got murdered because they were Jesus followers, and they're pointing fingers at you because you used to go to the market but not anymore? What about now? Do you take the mark? You might be next to being killed. Do you take the mark now? I think we're very quick to judge them in those days and to say, how could they take the mark? How could they go and worship an idol and then go to the home churches? It is with that in mind that I want us to quickly look at a small section from Revelation 13. Okay, so let's have a look at it. Again, I'm reading from the English Standard Version. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea. Who is that? It's Domitian. Put yourself in the first century Ephesus. Who is the beast of the sea, and 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horn, and blasphemous names on its head. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard, its feet were like a bear, and its mouth was like a lion mouth. And to the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. Excuse me. One of its heads seems to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed. What does that remind you of? Remember the story that I told you of Vespasian, okay? Who do you think that is? It's Vespasian. This is not complicated again. John, when he writes Revelation, he knows it, he's seen it. John's seen the temple on the one side, he's seen the temple on the other side, he's seen that structure, humongous structure of Domitian, right, as it's a beast rising from. He was probably a part of a Bible study, a small group, a home church in that area, and he probably had to go, knew of someone, he had to go to the market to get a mark of the beast in order to be able to buy and sell things, in order to look after his family. It's not that complicated. Who was most famous for that event? Yet we made this book so complicated that many people don't even want to read it. And then he carries on. And the whole earth marveled at as they followed the beast. Now, it goes on to talk about some of the people who refused to worship them, died by the sword, and by the sword they died. So let me ask you another question. So again, this is a home church. We are now again in Ephesus. We are meeting on a Monday evening in Ephesus. So here's a question. You're sitting together, talking about the 2 temples that were just built, and thinking to yourself that the mission is coming for his advent. What do? Think about it. Okay? The whole city is required by Roman law to go and announce his arrival. And if we don't, we will die. And if we go out and see him, then we will have to bow down. And if we don't bow down, we die. Then what do? And your children look at you. They come into the room where we're having a Bible study, and they look at you and ask, Mom and Dad, are we going to die? Guys, that was a reality in those days. That was real. Those are real questions that they were facing. Now, Revelation 13 will go on to talk about the number of the beast, and it's a number like a man. The number is 666. Now, you need to note that there is a distinction in Revelation 13 in between the mark and the number. The mark is not getting 666 on your hand. The mark and the number are not the same thing. So what is the mark? What does the number mean? Well, it's 3 sixes, 666. Again, this is not the first time this number has shown up. And we spoke about it a bit last time. So here's the deal. 3 sixes. Now, 6 is the number of men. 3 is the number of community, always Trinity. It's about empire, okay? So 6 is the number of men, 3 is the number of community, always community, the Trinity. It's about an empire of men. And it always shows up that way. Every time that it is used in scripture, it shows that way with Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, 1 Kings 10:14. It shows that way in David and Goliath. It shows up that way with Greece and with Babylon, the number of men in a community of greatness. It always shows up that way. Text interprets text. You see, for me, it's not that important to understand what the number of the beast or the mark of the beast was, but I think it's critical for us to wrestle with how you and I take the mark without even realizing that we're even taking it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Any question, guys, so far? No. Okay. So let me carry on. Back, sorry. Where in our lives have we taken the mark and didn't realize that we took it? I don't want to step on anyone's toes, including my own toes. What are we making too much of a priority in our culture today? I think we as Christians have a priority problem. Do we get excited about God like we get excited about other things? So, by the way, the word enthusiastic means in God excited. Did you know that? In Theo is God, and Theo is in God. Enthusiastic means excited or out of control. Okay, what have we allowed to get hold of us, which has nothing to do with God? You see, it was the blood of the Lamb and the words of the testimony that our brothers and sisters in Ephesus were concerned about. Okay, so and that is, in a way, why we are here today. You know what we need today in this country? It's a group of followers of Jesus who will tell that there is nothing more important than Jesus in our lives. This is not about having it easy in life when you follow Jesus. Try and tell that to the guys in the first century Ephesus, or any in that matter, anywhere in the first century. Does our life show what is most important things in our lives? Okay? It's a question we need to ask ourselves. Now, no matter how much the world tries, the Lord will not share his glory. Community is what sounds the alarm to the danger of the um, the the shift, this incremental shift of society. Each person has to swear their own allegiance. And then the last one is there were consequences for taking the mark then. There are consequences for taking the mark today, in our life today. So that's a question worth asking. So, guys, this is the end of our lecture. We're not going to need to go into session 2. Next one will be the harvest is coming, also another interesting one. But before I finish, I've mentioned about this booklet that I wrote on Revelation, and it basically covers all the lectures, the pictures, the questions, some of the resources. It's laid out for you here. I don't know if you can see it. It's laid out for you here. And if you want to, especially those who don't come to my church, it's a great Bible study series that you can look at the videos, and you can also then have the discussion. Everyone can have a copy or whatever. If you're interested, just WhatsApp me separately, privately, and I'll let you know how you can get your hands on one. And then also our next set of lectures I've been advertising will be happening in June. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the different characters that describe God. So, living water, El Shaddai, my wonderful counselor, Father, all these kind of things. And it's about an 8-week series that we're going to be looking at. We're going to go deep into both the Old and the New Testament. So we're going to be jumping up and down. If you're interested in doing that, also WhatsApp me privately, and I'll tell you what you need to do in order to enroll for that one. Guys, any questions? You got about 7 minutes before we get kicked out. Any questions?
No, thanks, Luchai.
No questions at all.
Luchai, you mentioned about the mark.
Yes.
Once you have that mark, were you able to go to the marketplace whenever you wanted to?
You would be able to go for that particular day, eh?
And then you would have to go and get another mark if you wanted to go again.
That's right, yeah. So think about a modern equivalent. If you go to a concert, or if you go to a club or something like that, and you get like a stamp on your hand, or if you go to see a game, then you pay your ticket, and sometimes you get a stamp, sometimes you get like a thing around your wrist, and that is valid for that game. That is valid for that night if you go to a concert. That is valid for that evening if you go to a club. You'll have to get another one the next day, or next time you attend a concert or a game or something like that. So the same thing would have been with regards to buying and selling at the market.
Okay. Thank you.
And there would be a soldier, a Roman soldier, who would check that you have the mark. If you had the mark, he will let you in. And then if you wanted to sell something, then you would have to go to the one side. And then if you wanted to buy something, then obviously you will walk around the marketplace, and then you could buy whatever you needed to buy.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Okay. All right, guys. As usual, I will send you the recording. I'll send you the notes so you can follow at your own time, at your own leisure. Next week, we will look at part 11. The harvest is coming and what that means. And as I said, if you're interested in what I spoke to you about, just privately WhatsApp me, and I'll tell you exactly what needs to be done. Have a wonderful evening. I'll see some
Thank
of you during the week or on the weekend, and others I'll see next Monday. God bless.
Thanks.
Good.
Thank you, Lekai. Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Wait, okay.